Well, I first worked here when I was very young, about 22, I think. Not long out of drama school, maybe 3 or 4 years. And I did a very beautiful play by Robert Holman called Other Worlds, which was directed by Richard Wilson, assisted by Alan Rickman, and designed by the amazing John Byrne. Very, very beautiful play. That was the first time that I sort of set foot on the stage here. But obviously, I had been coming to see shows here before that. And, for me, the Court was sort of theatre mecca, really. When I was becoming obsessed by the idea of theatre and becoming an actor, it wasn't really the sort of the old classical greats like Gielgud and Peggy Ashcroft and all those people, or Olivier, who I was sort of inspired by. No disrespect to them, of course, but my generation was inspired really by what was happening here. The invention of 20th century modernism, the invention of modernism, really, the explosion that took place in the 50s here under George Devine and Jocelyn Herbert and all those amazing people. And then that new writing, because when I became an actor, I wanted to change the world. That's what I thought theatre could do and would do, and we all should be doing. And so this was the place I thought, where that was most likely to happen. The other thing is that it seems to me the meeting place between theatre writing and the world, where theatre writing meets what's going on in the world. Where are we now? This moment in history, that's what it should be doing. I think that's what we expect of the Court, and we're very happy when that happens. And that won't mean it's always producing hits or great successes, but it should mean it's producing incredibly interesting writing that's about now. And you can look back to look at now, or you can look forward to look at now, but it doesn't. Nothing has to be set in 2015 necessarily, but that's what I think of it as a place where those two things meet more than any other theatre in this city, anyway. And then I think the other thing about it is that it doesn't sit and wait for great writing to come. It, I think, has invested amazing resources in going out and finding people who might be writers, could be writers, aren't writers at the moment, or just beginning to dream of being writers. Cross class, cross everything. Going out and finding them and creating a place where those people can come in and experiment and put pen to paper metaphorically, and begin the process of becoming theatre writers. And we've seen again and again how amazingly rich and fertile that has been. So I think the Court's responsible for finding Andrea Dunbar and Sarah Kane and all those amazing writers that, again, change the way we think about what the theatre is and who it's for. Everybody has the right to change their identity and to look at themselves and say, no, we need to shift and we need to move on. But I suppose I would always hope that the Court would retain that role in some way, to be the place where new writing is celebrated, fashioned, crafted, where the idea of craft is maintained. Because I think those things are going, and there's a danger they will go. And everything is about craft. Every aspect, lighting design, theatre design, acting, writing, directing, it's all craft. It's talent and craft. And I think if the Court has a responsibility, maybe it's partly to maintain that idea that nothing has to be brilliant when it arrives in the building. Together we will fashion something, we will knock its edges off, we will change its shape, we will maybe even change its direction, whatever the piece is, but we'll do that as a company, as a collaborative team involving everybody, and then offer it up, and the audience come in, and they're another ingredient in the journey of the piece. And we have to hold on to that idea of theatre and making theatre against what will be some challenges, I think, to that. But I hope the Court will lead the way in that and continue to find those pieces of writing that really speak to who we are and who we might be, who we could be, who we have been, See, for me, the Court is very exotic. I think it was always the most exotic place I could dream of working. So every time I set foot in here, I feel very proud to be here. I don't really know why. I feel particularly proud to be here. And particularly feel that I've come to the place I feel I in some way belong, in terms of what I want to do with the work I do, what I think the theatre is for in the world. I had such aspirations when I was younger, and I try to hold on to them. Of course, they get tempered by age and some sense of what's real, but I don't want to completely lose touch with the idea that theatre can change the world, and certainly change. If the world is changed person by person, it definitely still can do that. And so here's the building. I think I feel I have a chance of doing that. I think of the Royal Court as a forge, and it's a sort of the more I think about that analogy or metaphor or whatever it is, the more I like it, because that you take like talent or ability, which is the sort of molten metal. And then the heat is this building and the extraordinary visionary sort of the combination of vision and skill and craft that exists here. And then you hammer out these plays. Plays don't come in, A4 envelopes ready. I don't think they come and they're part of a process. And then literary managers and directors and actors get into the room with them, roll up our sleeves, and we work on them. And even great, brilliant writers like Carol Churchill and many who followed her here, nobody produces perfect products. It's a process. And I think the thing about the Court is it's a place I associate always with process and not product, although it has amazing product, on its backlist. But it's about process, and that's what I love and defend, and we need to defend it now, because I think that idea is slipping away. More and more, theatre's sort of commodity now. But I think it has to be process, and any actor or director or even writer will tell you that the process starts on the first minute of rehearsal and ends on the last minute of the last performance, and there's nothing settled, nothing's in aspic at any point, not if it's a live, vibrant piece of theatre. And that process has always been, I think, what the Royal Court's about.
Would you finish this sentence for me, please? And the sentence is, if the Royal Court didn't exist, I wouldn't
have met the amazing refugee community that I did through Death and the Maiden, who I have stayed with ever since and become really involved in that sort of area of work, all of which happened. I wouldn't have met Helen Bamber, who's become the great sort of mentor of my life. Actually, she sadly died, but who I met when rehearsing Death and the Maiden. I wouldn't have stood by that red wall, which I love so much. It's still there, isn't it? I wouldn't have seen the most exquisite piece of theatre architecture when they did the revamp, but the best piece of reconceiving a theatre ever. I wouldn't have spent a lot of money at Comolario. Wouldn't have done a lot of things. Wouldn't have been directed by Richard Wilson and Alan Rickman, which was a strangely wonderful combination. Oh, I don't know. I think I wouldn't. I would have had a very different career.